We are live here in Reno, Nevada, the hometown of producer Andrew. So producer Andrew, we're holding down the fort here. We're going to be doing a couple hours here on national radio on Real America's Voice. And then we will be going to the University of Nevada, Reno today for a major event. We're going to be registering voters, talking to folks there, and having a great time. So if you are in Reno, come by and say hello. The biggest little city in the world. And I got to tell you, the vibe on the ground here feels great. This is a working class area, Washoe County. This is an area that traditionally is somewhat conservative in its voting patterns, but this county, if it runs up the score enough, can forgive the sins of what happens in Clark County down in Las Vegas, and could potentially deliver the state of Nevada for Donald Trump. So we're doing all out Reno today. We're meeting with folks, doing events, doing stuff on campus, doing the grassroots hustle that other groups refuse to do. This is, for those who don't know about Reno, it's really developed nicely in the last decade. There's a ton of money that's been flowing into this place. A lot of development, a lot of new hotels, a lot of beautiful restaurants, strip centers. It is the gateway to the desert and the Sierras, and it's right next to Lake Tahoe and near Carson City, which is the capital of Nevada. So today we're going to be registering voters on the campus of University of Nevada, Reno. And yesterday was a big day. The last 5 or 6 election cycles in Arizona, and albeit across the country, Republicans almost always lose last-minute voter registration. Now, let's take a step back. What is voter registration? Why did I bother you guys so much for the last 9 months about voter registration? Voter registration leads to voter rolls, and the original sin of faulty elections is found in our voter rolls. Are you guys upset that people are voting that shouldn't be voting? It's because our voting rolls have not been cleaned. Are you upset there's a lot of people that agree with us that don't vote? It's because they're not on the voting rolls. Are you upset that a lot of people are getting ballots that shouldn't be getting ballots? It's because the voting rolls have not been maintained. Voting rolls, which of course are a byproduct of when people register to vote, is the central infrastructure of any election. It's where all of our energy should be. If you want to clean up our elections, if you want to make sure that they do not do 2020 all over again, it should all be about challenging the suspicious voter registration individuals on voting rolls and adding legitimate new Trump supporters on the voting rolls. That 1-2 combo. Now, Michael Whatley and Laura Trump and the RNC, they're doing the list maintenance. We at Turning Point Action have been about addition. So understand that for the last couple of election cycles, Democrats have dominated when it comes to voter registration. Here's how it typically works. Voter registration in the last 30 days before an election is very predictive. Here's how the logic works, and it turns out it has been true the last 20 years. If somebody all of a sudden says, oh my goodness, I got to go register to vote, that means they're registering to vote with intent. They have a candidate in mind. They want their voice to be heard this election cycle. Someone who registers to vote in the last push has a much, much higher likelihood to vote than someone who even registered to vote back in January. So, for example, yesterday in Arizona, when a plumber or a welder or an electrician says, I got to go register to vote, it's almost like a mini vote, if you will. It's almost as if they're voting early without actually voting, in the sense that they're showing their hand. The last-minute voter registration push is a prelude. It is a canary in the coal mine. It is a preview. It is a coming attraction of the spirit, the energy, the enthusiasm. It is a sneak peek of what the electorate will look like come into November. Now, mind you, Democrats in the 2022 midterms slaughtered us in last-minute voter registration. Democrats in 2022 dropped a nuclear bomb on us when it came to voter registration. We were so obliterated in 2022 voter registration, it was hard to even keep up. I mean, we were losing on margins 10-1 sometimes in voter registration during COVID, during the race riots. What happened yesterday? Well, at Turning Point Action, we deployed our hundreds of full-time people, specifically in Arizona, but also in a national campaign to make sure that the last-minute push of this voter registration season is not a bloodbath. Now, understand, Democrats are supposed to, in general, have a registration advantage because people who turned 18 should be way more Democrat, but that advantage is fading. Understand, in the state of Arizona, which, of course, is our passion, our focus, and our, dare I say, our obsession. In the state of Arizona, in 2020, Republicans had more registrations than Democrats by 100,000 voters. 100,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats in the state of Arizona in 2020. And that was decreasing and shrinking every month. April, May, June, July, August, September, October. At the very end, Democrats would dump and flood the system with voter registration forms. Yesterday was the last day of voter registration in Maricopa County, which is the only county that we have accurate data from right now. Yesterday, Democrats added 2,000 new voters in Maricopa County. Republicans, we added 4,000 new voters in Maricopa County. We outregistered them by 2,000 voters in Maricopa County yesterday. In fact, in just Maricopa County alone, not statewide, that does not include Yavapai, Pinal, Yuma, Cochise, La Paz, Mojave. It doesn't include Apache. It doesn't include all of these amazing conservative counties across the state of Arizona. Just in Maricopa County, we now have 173,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats in the state of Arizona. 173,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats. Remember, voter registration right before an election is a sneak peek. It is a coming attraction. In just Maricopa County alone, we have 73% more increase of registered Republicans than Democrats than we did in the entire state in 2020. And yesterday we saw the Democrats did everything they possibly could to dump forms at the Maricopa County office to try to run up the score. But what we were doing at Turning Point Action and the organic thrust was too much for them. I'm still getting the final reports from Tyler and the Turning Point Action team. But the final reports that we are seeing show that yesterday we were responsible for, online and in person, 3,000 new Trump voters in Arizona alone. I'm getting that number double and triple checked, but just Turning Point Action. That's 30% of the deficit of what Donald Trump fell short of in 2020 in one day in Maricopa County. But it gets even better than this. It gets even better. Because statewide in Arizona, we're going to tabulate the final numbers. It looks as if we'll land around 300,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats statewide in the state of Arizona. If that ends up being correct, that would be triple the registration net advantage that we had in 2020. Now, by no means does this mean that we are going to win, but this does mean that our likelihood of winning has increased, and even more importantly, the raw material, the infrastructure, the table is set for us to now do the work to win. All this means is that the infrastructure and the terrain to win is more in our favor. That's all this means. It does not mean that Donald Trump's going to win. It does not mean that he's going to win Arizona automatically. What it does is it sets the table now for the greatest ballot blitz in the history of Western civilization. Last-minute voter registration is a little bit of a sneak peek of what is to come. And for the first time in nearly 20 years, we beat the Democrats.